Marcus was having a normal Tuesday. He'd gotten up early, made it through the morning without incident, driven his usual route to work. He was tired, not dramatically tired, just the accumulated tiredness of someone who hadn't slept deeply in a while. But he was managing. He was fine. And then, in a parking lot, a man in an expensive car cut in front of him, took the last spot Marcus had been waiting for, clearly waiting for almost a full minute. The man got out, glanced at Marcus's car, and walked away without a word. Not even acknowledgement, not even the small dignity of a sorry shrug. Marcus felt it immediately, the heat in his chest, the tightening in his jaw. He honked. The man kept walking. He rolled down his window and said something he would later be embarrassed to repeat. The man glanced back once, expressionless, and disappeared into the building. Marcus sat there, engine running, anger running hotter. He replayed it. He thought about what he should have said. He thought about how this was typical, how people like that always get away with it, how nobody respects anyone anymore, how the world has become coarser and meaner and more inconsiderate. He carried that temperature into his office. He was short with a colleague who asked a simple question. He ate lunch without tasting it. He left work that evening still slightly activated, still carrying the ember. The man in the parking lot never thought about Marcus again. Marcus thought about the man, on and off, for 3 days. That is the story of how anger works. Not the dramatic kind, the ordinary kind. The kind that doesn't make headlines and doesn't feel like a problem because it's so common that it's just become the weather. A small event, a real reaction, a cost paid entirely by the person who was wronged, while the one who wronged them moved on without consequence before the echo even faded. This is where we begin, not with philosophy first, but with the truth of what we actually experience and what it's actually doing to us. Marcus's story is not unusual. It is Tuesday. It is the commute, the comment in the meeting, the message that didn't come, the plan that fell apart, the person who spoke to you like you didn't matter. These moments are the texture of modern life, and individually, none of them seem significant enough to examine. That's precisely what makes them so dangerous. Anger has settled so deeply into daily existence that most people no longer recognize when it has taken hold. It doesn't always announce itself with a raised voice or a slammed door. More often it arrives as a low hum, impatience in a checkout line, irritability at a partner over something minor, the reflexive frustration that precedes thought every time something goes slightly wrong. This is the form anger most commonly takes, and it's the form we've collectively agreed to call normal. Marcus Aurelius, writing privately in a journal he never intended for anyone else to read, noted something that has become more true with every passing century. The consequences of anger are almost always heavier than the causes that produced them. A small irritation becomes a ruined mood. A ruined mood becomes harsh speech. Harsh speech creates distance. Distance creates more misunderstanding. The cause may have been someone else's careless parking. The consequence is your afternoon, your relationship, and in some cases, your night. What makes this moment in history particularly aggressive for anger is that we have built an entire information environment designed to keep it alive. Social media platforms discovered early that outrage holds attention longer than contentment. News cycles learned that fear and anger keep eyes on the screen far more effectively than peace. A person can now wake up to the anger of thousands of strangers before they finish their first cup of coffee, absorbing conflict that has nothing to do with their life, that they can't resolve, that simply sits in their nervous system, adding weight. The mind was never built for this. It was not designed to carry the emotional charge of millions of strangers simultaneously. And yet this has become the unremarkable shape of the average morning. Temperance, the Stoic virtue that demands mastery over ordinary impulse, is one of the hardest disciplines precisely because it is never off-duty. Courage has its moments. Wisdom arrives in reflection. But temperance is asked of you in traffic, in conversations, in the moment between receiving bad news and deciding what to do with it. It is the virtue of the unremarkable moment. And the unremarkable moments are where most people are losing the most ground. Elizabeth Kinney once wrote that the person who angers you conquers you. The mechanics of this are worth understanding clearly. When someone or something causes you to lose control of your own emotional state, the event is no longer happening to you from the outside. It has entered the inside. It now lives in your body, in your thoughts, in your speech, shaping the next hour, sometimes the next several days, while the original cause has long since moved on. This is the thing most people never examine, the asymmetry. The provocation was brief. The response can be endless. The cause was external. The cost is paid entirely internally. And yet, we keep paying it. Because it has become so normal to pay it, that the payment feels like reality rather than a choice. It is a choice. That's what the Stoics understood. And understanding that changes everything. Return to Marcus in the parking lot. His jaw is tight, his heart rate is elevated, his breathing has become shallow. His shoulders have risen slightly toward his ears. He doesn't notice any of this consciously. He's too busy thinking about what he should have said, but his body is registering everything. The physiological response to anger is not subtle. The adrenal glands release a surge of cortisol and adrenaline. The heart accelerates, blood pressure rises, muscles contract in preparation for either fight or flight. The brain narrows its focus to the threat, which means it becomes less capable of the kind of broad, creative, compassionate thinking that requires calm. This is the body preparing for survival, and in genuine survival situations, it's extraordinarily useful. The problem is that the body cannot distinguish between a threat to your physical safety and the feeling of being disrespected in a parking lot. To your nervous system, both register as danger. Both trigger the same cascade. Both put your body on alert. In short bursts, this is manageable. The body activates, the threat passes, the system downregulates, and equilibrium returns. But when this cycle runs constantly, when the provocations are daily, when the frustrations are continuous, when the low fire never fully goes out, the body never fully returns to stillness. It remains ready, it remains guarded, it remains slightly elevated at all times, never quite resting, never quite recovering. This is what chronic anger actually looks like in a body over time. The shoulders that never fully drop, the jaw that clenches during sleep, the nights that are not really restful because the mind is still running arguments, the mornings that begin already slightly defensive, already carrying yesterday's unfinished tension into the new day. Alexander Pope wrote that to be angry is to revenge the faults of others upon ourselves. Medically and physiologically, this is precise. The person who harmed you has moved on. Your cortisol levels have not. Your blood pressure is still elevated. Your sleep is still disrupted. You are paying, with your body, for something someone else did. The physical aging effects of chronic anger are not metaphorical. The face hardens. The muscles around the jaw and eyes carry constant low tension that becomes structural over years. The posture changes. The body that expects conflict holds itself differently than the body that expects peace. The heart works harder. The immune system, chronically taxed by stress hormones, becomes less effective. You can sometimes tell without being told when someone has been carrying anger for a long time. Not because they're visibly furious, because of a quality of tightness in how they hold themselves, a quickness in how they respond to friction, a heaviness behind the eyes that speaks of a nervous system that hasn't rested properly in too long. Seneca understood this centuries before modern medicine had words for it. Anger, when left unrestrained, often harms the one carrying it far more deeply than the original injury itself. The injury was a moment. The anger can become years of internal erosion. The Stoic doesn't approach emotional discipline as a philosophical nicety. They approach it as survival, as the preservation of the body, the preservation of years, the preservation of the peace that makes everything else in life possible. Because calm is not the absence of feeling, calm is restoration. Calm is what allows the heart to slow, the breath to deepen, the mind to widen. Calm is biological repair happening in real time, and every unnecessary anger prevents it. Here is something Marcus probably didn't know about himself in that parking lot. His reaction to the man who took his space was not entirely about the man who took his space. This is one of the hardest truths about anger to face, because it moves the investigation away from the external cause, which is where it feels more comfortable, and toward the internal history, which is where the real answers are. Most anger does not begin in the moment it appears. It rises fast and feels immediate and seems directly connected to whatever is in front of you. But experienced observers, the Stoics, and more recently psychologists, have consistently found that the intensity of a reaction is almost never fully explained by the event itself. When something small produces something large, there is usually something older underneath. Marcus had been carrying fatigue. He'd been dealing with a situation at work that made him feel overlooked. He had a pattern, going back years, of swallowing his own needs to keep the peace, at home, at work, in social situations, and periodically erupting when a minor event cracked the accumulated pressure. He didn't see this. He only saw the man in the parking lot. This is what Marcus Aurelius was pointing toward when he wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Repeated patterns of thought become emotional habit. Emotional habit becomes the lens through which the world is filtered. A person who has carried unexpressed resentment for long enough begins to experience ordinary life as hostile, because the filter has changed, not the world. Betrayal is one of the deepest roots of this. When trust is broken by a partner, a friend, a parent, a colleague, the wound doesn't heal automatically with time. It often goes underground. It shapes how the person approaches every subsequent relationship, bringing a wariness and a hair-trigger quality that the people in those new relationships experience as unfair because they haven't done what the original person did. They're being held to an old charge. Humiliation leaves its own particular kind of scar. A public failure, a rejection that cut deeply, a moment of being diminished in front of others. These experiences have a way of staying alive long after they should have faded. They can return without warning when the present moment touches something similar, and when they return, the body responds to them as if they're happening again, not as history. Regret is another fire that quietly keeps burning. Many people are not only angry at the world or at specific people, they're angry at themselves, at decisions made and not made, at words spoken and not spoken, at years that passed while something important waited. That anger at the self has nowhere comfortable to go, so it often surfaces outward, onto easier targets. What anger is often protecting beneath all of these layers is something much softer: grief, fear, shame, the wound that never fully healed, the loss that was never properly mourned, the humiliation that was buried under pride because grieving it felt too dangerous. This is why anger can feel like armor. It is armor. It is hard where the wound is soft. It is aggressive where the genuine feeling is fragile. And it keeps the world at enough distance that the real thing underneath can stay unexposed. The Stoic who begins to understand this stops looking at anger as a character trait and starts looking at it as a messenger. What is this actually about? What wound is this protecting? What loss is this carrying? These questions don't excuse the anger, but they get underneath it in a way that surface management never can. And what's underneath it, once faced honestly, has significantly less power to run the rest of the day. Let's return to Marcus one more time, but now in a different scenario. 3 weeks after the parking lot incident, he's in a meeting. A colleague makes a comment that implies Marcus didn't do his part on a shared project. The comment is unfair. Marcus knows it. Several people in the room know it. He feels the heat immediately, the chest, the jaw. The impulse to respond sharply, to correct the record, to make sure everyone in this room understands exactly what happened. And then something different occurs. He pauses. Not dramatically, nobody in the room notices. Just a breath. 1 second of space between the feeling and the response. And in that second, something shifts. He thinks, if I snap at him now, I look reactive. I hand him exactly the dynamic he might be hoping for. I become the story instead of the facts. He says calmly, "I'm happy to go over the details of my contribution after this meeting." Neutral, measured, final. The colleague has nowhere to go with that. The moment passes. Marcus leaves the meeting with his clarity intact, his reputation intact, and, crucially, his peace intact. The colleague, not Marcus, looks small. This is what Epictetus meant with one of the most important sentences in Stoic philosophy. When someone makes you angry, you make them your master. Not a metaphor, a precise description of what actually happens. When another person's words or actions can dictate your emotional state, they have, for that moment, taken command of your inner world. They didn't ask for your permission. They didn't need it. You handed it to them the moment you reacted. Think about the full implications of this. A stranger in a parking lot can own your afternoon. A colleague can own your evening. A memory of someone who wronged you years ago can own your night. An anonymous comment from someone you will never meet can alter your mood for hours. All of this happens not because those people have genuine power over you, but because you allowed the reaction to proceed without interruption. Epictetus was also clear about where anger actually begins. It is not things themselves that disturb us, he wrote, but our judgments about things. A delayed train is just a delayed train. A rude comment is just sound. A slight, a dismissal, a careless action. These are events. Events carry no inherent emotional charge. The charge is added by the meaning your mind assigns to them. This is not a comfortable insight. It means that much of what feels like the world's fault is, at a deeper level, a transaction your own mind is completing. The event provides the spark, the judgment ignites it, the reaction keeps it burning. But this uncomfortable truth is also an enormously empowering one, because if your judgment is where the fire is lit, your judgment is also where it can be interrupted. That gap, the space between what happened and what you decide it means, is where your freedom actually lives. Most people never find that gap because they move through it so quickly it feels non-existent. The reaction seems to happen all at once, but it doesn't. There is always, however briefly, a space, a breath, a half second. And in that half second there is a choice. The Stoic trains to find that space, not through philosophical theory alone, but through the practical, repetitive discipline of pausing in moments of provocation. One held tongue, one slowed breath, one moment of asking, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my clarity? Is this worth what it will cost my body to run this reaction through? The answer is almost never yes, and asking the question interrupts the automatic surrender long enough for reason to return. What becomes available to the person who develops this capacity is something genuinely rare, the experience of being unprovocable. Not unfeeling, the heat still comes, but the heat no longer commands. You can feel the irritation rise and watch it without following it. You can feel the impulse toward sharp speech and choose silence instead. You can be in the presence of provocation without becoming part of it. That is not passivity, that is sovereignty. The sovereignty of someone who has stopped renting their inner world out to whatever the day decides to deliver. Understanding anger is not the same as being free of it. This is the part people often want to skip to, the solution, the technique, the method that makes it stop, without fully absorbing what came before. But the fire doesn't vanish simply because you've named it correctly. It is still there. It still rises. The body still generates heat in response to difficulty. The jaw still tightens. The pulse still changes. The difference the Stoic develops is not in the presence of the fire. It's in what happens to the fire next. Anger is energy. That's the fundamental insight. And energy is not inherently destructive. It becomes destructive when it has no container, no direction, no intelligent guidance. The same emotional charge that drives an outburst in a meeting can drive 2 hours of focused effort at a task. The same frustration that generates a harmful response in a relationship can generate the kind of honest, difficult conversation that actually changes something. The fire doesn't need to be extinguished. It needs to be redirected. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "To waste no more time arguing what a good person should be, simply be one." He understood that too much of anger is rehearsal. The mind runs the argument that hasn't happened yet. It imagines the response to the slight that may never come. It replays the conversation looking for where it should have said something different. All of this is energy spending itself in circles. The Stoic stops the circular motion and returns to linear action. Physical movement is one of the oldest and most reliable methods of redirecting emotional charge. The body was built to move, to exert, to struggle against resistance. When that capacity is engaged fully, in training, in physical work, in anything that demands genuine effort, something in the emotional system releases. The charge that had no intelligent outlet finds one. The breath deepens. The muscles, which had been holding tension, begin to use it instead. There's something almost alchemical about this. The person who goes for a hard run after a genuinely infuriating day often returns to find that the day looks different. Not because anything changed externally, but because the emotional charge has been metabolized, rather than simply stewed in. Silence is another form of discipline that the Stoic learns slowly and values deeply. Anger wants to speak. It wants to defend, to strike back, to prove itself. Speech feels like action. It feels like doing something. But in most moments of anger, speech is the most expensive luxury available. Words spoken in heat cannot be returned. They change things in ways that take much longer to repair than the original irritation took to produce. Silence is not defeat. Silence is refusal. It denies anger its fastest weapon and creates the space in which the mind can actually think rather than simply react. Seneca understood something about the imagination's role in all of this. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Much of what anger feeds on is not present experience, but projected experience. The imagined conversation, the anticipated insult, the future confrontation being pre-lived in the present. The mind creates suffering from scenarios that haven't happened and may never happen. The Stoic learns to catch this, to return to what is actually present, to stop paying the emotional price of experiences that don't yet exist. Structure itself becomes a form of protection. The person who wakes at a consistent time, who moves their body regularly, who eats with some discipline and protects their sleep, has built a nervous system that is simply more resilient to provocation. This is not coincidence. The biological systems that support patience and measured response are the same systems that are depleted by irregular sleep, poor nutrition, and sedentary days. A disordered life feeds a disordered emotional state. The Stoic who understands this treats the structure of their days as preparation for the moments they can't control. Every day the world will provide material for anger, delays, disrespect, disappointment, minor indignities, larger failures. This will not stop. It is not a phase. It is the nature of a world full of imperfect people, navigating limited resources and conflicting desires. The Stoic does not wait for the world to become less provocative before beginning to practice. The world is the gym. The ordinary Tuesday, with its parking lots and its meetings and its small frustrations, is the training ground. Every moment of held tongue is a repetition. Every slowed breath is a set. Every chosen silence is progress. And what gets built through this repetition, slowly, quietly, in ways that don't announce themselves, is something genuinely different. A person who is harder to move, not colder, not more closed, just steadier, less at the mercy of what the world decides to deliver on any given morning. The fire is still there. It will always be there. But now it burns in a direction you chose. Marcus, 3 months after that parking lot, has a different kind of Tuesday. Someone is rude to him in a meeting. He notices the heat. He lets a breath pass. He responds from clarity rather than charge. He goes home without carrying the weight of it. He hasn't become someone who doesn't feel. He's become someone whose feelings don't automatically become behavior. That gap, small as it is, practiced as it must be, contains his freedom. The goal was never to stop feeling. Feeling is what it means to be alive, to be human, to be genuinely invested in a life that matters to you. Anger itself is not the problem. Anger can be information. It can be fuel. It can be the signal that something important was violated and deserves a considered response. The problem was always in the automatic, unexamined, unconsidered surrender to it. The giving away of inner peace to something external without even registering the transfer. The Stoics weren't emotionless. Marcus Aurelius grieved. Seneca loved people and lost them. Epictetus built his entire philosophy inside the constraints of slavery. These were not cold men. They were deeply feeling people who had learned, through discipline and failure and honest self-examination, to be the authors of their own responses rather than the products of their circumstances. That's available to you, not as a destination you arrive at, as a practice you return to daily, in the parking lots, in the meetings, in the ordinary Tuesdays that are the actual substance of a life. Every moment of restraint is a choice for freedom. Every held breath is a vote for who you are becoming. The world will keep testing, keep answering with awareness.